Pastor Shade Olutola is a mother and a wife of 3 adult children. Unfortunately, she's looking so young, grandmother of 2 toddlers. God bless you, ma'am. With all this accolade and all this armful, you still have time to come to our presence. So you have 20 minutes, ma'am, to take us through this journey. God bless. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. It's so good to be here finally. Thanks for having me. Right. Okay. Without much ado, let me just go into the assignment for tonight. I've been asked to come and share my experience, but you guys doesn't have enough time to hear my experience. So I will do my best to kind of just give you a very brief summary. And that's the first assignment. And to say very briefly how I coped. And secondly, to say something about how the church leaders can respond to domestic violence. Now, to start with, I identify with a lot of what the other speakers have said, particularly the women. I identify with, to start with Reverend Victoria. I am nobody's victim. I refuse to accept that label. So I don't describe myself as that. And I also identify with what Anisha said as well. And what everybody, I just echoed what everybody else has said, is a very much, across nation, across everything. Domestic violence abuse is real. Now, going down to my story very briefly. I'm originally from Nigeria, as you can tell. I'm one of those, if you like, catalog wives. What do I mean by that? I met my ex-husband. We've been divorced now 10 years. On a Wednesday. By Sunday, he traveled out of the country. But before he traveled out, he introduced me to his family as his fiancé. And after that, obviously, somebody that's never asked me to marry, I don't know him, we've not really have any rapport. It was just my late sister that said, come, let's go to this party. And that was one thing led to the other. Long story short, the father then started coming to look for me. Wonderful man. And so I fell in love with the father, thinking this is how the man will be because of his father. The father was a wonderful man. 18 months later, I'm on the plane. I've come to join him in London. And now I'm coming from a very strict background. I'm, young. I'm talking about 32 years ago now. I was 21. And so where I'm coming from is a very strict religious background where you have set values, set everything. And within a month of me coming to join him, I had my first slap. That was a shock. And obviously, naturally, I knew what was going on. I knew this is wrong. And I did plan to escape. Now, if you know me, I'm a very stubborn person by nature. I get called all kind of name. I don't really care what people call me. But I started making all kind of excuse. And many of the women that are on the stage today will do the same. You knew this is wrong, but you start to excuse it. Oh, it's the devil. And remember, I'm from a very strong Christian background. It's because I did not marry properly. It's because I married out of church. Oh, better the devil you know. Don't leave this one, no. What do you think will happen if you go? Oh, you come up with all kinds of, my favorite. God said, I hate divorce. If you're a Christian, you recognize that. And so I gave myself, and all kinds of, and then there's this pedestal that we put ourselves. Oh, I don't want to start having children I'm too young. I don't have to start having children for different fathers. Let me just, this one I can. So I gave myself all kinds of stuff. Like I said, I cannot go into this. And I managed it. I knew a month into the relationship that I was in trouble. But the stubborn side of me that don't give up on anything did not leave for the next 22 years. And by nature, I am very strong. I can be focused. So I made up my mind from a month on. The first thing I wanted to do was to go and abort my son. I decided that, you know what, I need to run away, go back to where I'm coming from. And then I tried, but I couldn't succeed with the abortion. So I decided, I went to the clinic and this Indian man kind of just said, get lost, if you don't want the father, keep the baby and go away. So I came back home and I decided, you know what, I'm going to have only this one child. And I will run back to Nigeria and I will forget about him. I had a plan. I always have plans. But of course, that did not happen well. 4 years later, I had a set of twins. But throughout the life of the marriage, not only was there violence consistently, there was financial abuse because it never worked. For the 11 years, it didn't earn money. It was usually, I brought you from Nigeria to come and earn money and all kind of stuff. Now, if any of you knew my ex, if you don't see us together, you would think that I'm lying. Nobody will believe that that person is capable of what I'm saying. I am your exact opposite. I am what you see. I'm and he is, in fact, you will not even hear him say a word. But there's hardly any week that I don't get a slap. And it's because once I said I'm shouting, it will be, oh, you're hysterical. They slap people to calm them down. And so it got to a point that I'm husband now. I started carrying weapons. I started carrying knives. And as soon as I knew he's coming there, automatically I'm looking for stuff to throw, to drag, to defend myself. And that was life. Of course, I went to seek counseling. I knew what was going on. And I was a very devout Christian by the grace of God. I've been born and redeemed. All I knew is the church. On one side, I knew what was going on at home. At my place of work as a mental health nurse, I was seeing people in my clinic telling me stories of what I was going through in my home. But I decided that for the sake of my children, please don't do that. Don't copy me at all. I was going to stay. And the reason is this. I wanted consistency. Not every woman is strong enough, like every story is different, to handle it that way. So please, don't stay for the children. Now, the reason I've been planning my escape for a long time, I would try to leave. Sometimes I would get a job, I would not get a house. I would get a school, I would not get this. At the point, I decided to go to Nigeria. He went and blacked my list. Up until the time I changed my name on my passport, I could not travel with that name without being stopped and being asked, where are the children? And I'm like, even they're adults now, you can't be asking me this anymore, even when they were adults. And that was the life. But as a Christian, this is where it comes from. By the time, and I was working 2 jobs because it wasn't working most of that 22 years. I was having to support the family financially, physically, everythingly, you name it. And like Anisha said, I approached the family that, I actually thought there was mental illness going on because, I go to court and I give evidence that mental health. I should know if I'm living with somebody with a similar experience. And I was told by the family that, what do you mean? Don't give him stigma of mental illness. You saw him before you married him, da, 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 da. And I'm like, he's the father of my 3 children. Come on, in this age, there's no stigma, you can get help. But that's one, there's no support there. That's one. 2, I wanted consistent for my children because I knew it cannot look after them. And if I try, they would just mess up my children's life. And I didn't want that. So I make up my mind that I was going to stay and endure for the sake of my children. Now, the reason I say that is bad is you just don't know. If you are not strong enough to give these children what they need to be able to manage this traumatic experience, please don't do it. It takes you every single thing you need to be able to shield your children in a domestic violence zone. Because they witness a lot of stuff and it does affect them negatively. Seek help, get out, whatever you need to do. And so I remember when one of my girls turned 16 and he came to me, we just had a very good, I think I just came back and that's the interesting thing. I'm a pastor, I started a church. I would be on the altar on Sunday, sometimes having got a slap or just coming out and I'm going to one. It's not uncommon. But the makeup and everything, and by personality-wise, if you're not close to me, you won't even see. You won't even know there's anything going on. And then you see me at party on Saturday, dancing and trying to cover up and, not letting anybody know that anything is going on. Do you know what I mean? But then once you enter, afraid to get into the house. Like I said to you, I don't have enough time. But one of the things that prompted me to make my decision and get away was 2 things happened. One, my 16-year-old daughter came to me after one of those fights and said to me, Mom, why do you think you need to put up with this? And I'm like, what do you mean? I started with my holier than thou preaching. Oh, I'm suffering because of children now. The way my mom told me, because obviously, my mom I've seen her go through things. So I make all kind of excuses. And she said to me, so you mean if a man did to you what he's doing to you, to me, you will allow me to stay there? I jump up and down. God forbid, no man would do that to my child. No, this. And then my 16-year-old asked me and said, so mom, why do you think it's okay for it to be done to you? That night, I make up my mind that, so I don't call the remaining two. Do you guys feel this way? They said yes, that they're even scared. You know, if you people, one of you will kill each other one day. I remember this time, it will start, I will finish. And sometimes, in all sincerity, the moment I know that it's coming, I already have a weapon. And sometimes I'm the first one to throw so that I can get away. Sometimes, if I know sometimes, I'm always carrying a knife until I go stop at stretch-up station or carrying a knife weapon. And so, you know, it was that bad. But yet, I was a pastor, amen, hallelujah, preaching in church, amen, hallelujah, and going through it. And nobody, if I did not tell you, you would not know, but we thank God. But not everybody could manage. But inside, I was dying. My self-esteem was gone. My confidence was gone. I was actually on the verge of a breakdown. And then my sister died. Then I lost my immediate junior sister to breast cancer. And I woke, you know, it was almost like a light bulb that, my God, this could be me. The same people that I'm worrying that they're going to say, pastor divorced his wife, his husband, is the same people that will also say, if it was that bad, why didn't you leave? Why do you have to stay until it got to that extent? There was nothing that did not happen. I spoke to pastor, I spoke to all the senior pastors. But finally, I understand the church. You know, I decided for myself, I made my decision, I left, I filed divorce, and that was the best thing that I ever did in my life. In fact, my life, there is life after divorce, whether you're a Christian or not. But as a child of God, I'm telling you, brethren, don't let anybody enslave you. Whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, the moment he's not doing what he said he will do, providing and all of that, he has already broken the vows. What the Bible preaches about is that God hates divorce because God hates anybody that breaks a vow. And the fact that you have already break a vow, you do not provide for me, you promise to love and to hold me, not to be kicking me about, not to be abusing me, not to do all of those things, you have already broken it. That I back out physically or divorce you is just me confirming what you've already started and done. And in all sincerity, I understand the dilemma that the church is. In a way, the church sees itself, and perhaps it is, you know, apologies to others, as a custodian to other religions on this platform. The church sees itself as a custodian of marriage. And you will naturally want to protect and defend it against all odds. Two, the church sees itself as in the job of reconciliation, but has no experience and no skill to handle that. The church had forgotten that the world has entered the church, and the church is now polluted with all kinds of manner of stuff. I mean, we are hearing stuff, and I will be very, very ashamed and very disappointed if any pastor stand anywhere and say, God says I hate divorce. If a woman, you as a woman, you need to be empowered by yourself. Don't tolerate it, if not for your sake, for the sake of the children. One of the reasons why I left was that, what message am I passing on to my daughters to say that you are not worth it, that you deserve this? Don't get me wrong, I'm strong and I defend myself each time. And if you call my ex and I will tell you that, oh, she did this first. Yes, I did that first because I felt I needed to protect myself. But it was not the right thing to do. It was not the right spot for me to do. But I felt I had to keep up with the facade. I actually went to one of the pastors and I said, this is what's happening in my home. This is what the pastor, guess what I was advised? Oh, don't worry now, the children are grown. Just move him in his room and you stay in your place and continue with the work of the ministry. And I say, I'm sorry, sir. That is a lie. I cannot live a lie anymore. I've lived a lie for 22 years. My children are grown now. By that time, I had a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old. And, you know, I don't need to keep this lie anymore. What I wanted has been achieved, but to have consistency for them. And so with the church, this is my submission. I'm going to finish very soon. Like I said, I cannot go through all my details, but that's just to give you a snapshot of what it must have been. I mean, I found myself one day walking on the street. I worked 2 jobs, and I'm not joking with you. I worked 2 jobs. I work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and then I do 3 nights in order to provide and support my children. That was what I had to do. Now, I don't care who you are. I mean, I will have the man telling me, it doesn't matter. I can slap you all I want. You can't leave me. It doesn't matter if I don't provide. God only says, I'm worse than I need federal. It's not a condition for divorce. And that's it, you know, and all of that emotion, not only was it physical, it was also emotional stuff, painful stuff, you know, things that will turn your mind that I cannot even repeat outside. And you endure that, and you stand on the pulpit and you preach because you're a parish pastor and you don't want people to say, and then you go through all that and God kept you, did not lose your mind. And somebody come and say to you, oh, Pastor Shade, if you put your hand on the plow, don't look back. Excuse me, walk in my shoe first. So please, I want to empower you. Don't allow anybody to reduce you to that. God loves you so much that he gave himself for you for eternity. He will not sacrifice your life until death do us part. It's a lie. If you die today, the children will live. The world will come. In fact, they will blame you, say, when you got to die, why did you stay? All the violence we've been hearing that ended up dying because of their husband, they will say, why did she stay? They still blame the person that ended up being dead. The other reason that I feel that we need to do, because I like to come up with a solution as well, is to look at the source of the problem. Now, people are very quick to quote, what God has joined together, let no man to. And my question is, did God really join them together? Because God is not a God of confusion. I think the church needs to establish routinely premarital counseling. If you know you are getting married, let's talk about this thing. Let's be open. Let's know exactly what's going on. And we need to stop this putting pressure on our youth to get married, that they go and make mistakes and then end up just to please us. I want to believe that nobody is doing that, because we don't want another generation of living in abusive relationship. Let them take their time. Let them find the right suitable person. And I also want to suggest to the church, I do not parish a pastor anymore, but I serve under a wonderful man of God. We also need to do something, sir. If you've been married after 5 years, you need to come and have like a top-up refresher course. After you've been married 5 years, then come and do it again for 10 years. Please, don't let us just assume that the fact you are married and you are going on is okay. Because some people are timid, some people will not even recognize the sign that anything is going on. And it needs to be talking, we need to be speaking it to say, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong. And yes, the church is in the job of reconciliation. I don't think God gave up on any of us. I know I'll stand because of the grace of God. And I don't want to give up. I'm not saying that. I think everybody involved in that, they're all victims. You know, they are victims because they don't of the circumstances they find themselves. And I truly believe it's not by mistake that God put them together, the father, the mother, and the child. Does that mean that every single marriage that is abused will end up in divorce? No, sir. No, ma'am. I think the church can stand and help to reconcile that. But first, the church needs to acknowledge the problem. The church needs to know that, listen, we've got this wrong here. We need to do something. We need to work with the authorities. We need to work with the family. We need to be speaking the truth. We are women and men of faith. We are supposed to tell the truth. And if Christ is the truth, we need to acknowledge that this is happening. And what is the solution? This has to be a topic in our women's meeting, in our youth meeting, in our adults meeting, every single facet of family that we have within the church. You need to have domestic abuse as an agenda to educate our younger ones and to let people know that this is a safe place. Have a code word, do something. Every church needs to have a plan of that. So, by the grace of God, wherever he has, please don't keep quiet. That's another problem that I did. I know my time is almost up, and I'm almost up. Don't keep quiet. I came, saying that, oh, for the first 12 years, I did not say anything to anybody. Nobody knows what's going on. I just managed it myself. And it almost broke me, if not for God. And it was, whatever goes on in a marriage must stay. No, it doesn't have to. And thank God, we have now have a lot of means. We've got Instagram, we've got all kinds of digital access that will allow us to express ourselves, to network and to link up with people. The Lord will help us. Once again, I want to appreciate you all. But please, don't die in silence. Before I finish off, I heard of a story of somebody that I grew up with. What happened to her? She was married to a pastor as well. They're both Christians. She's going to complain about, I'm going to finish with this story. And the reason why I'm finishing with this story is I'm praying that anybody that feels that they find themselves in that situation, I would know someone. Because when I told my mom, it was like, oh no, you can't leave. You're a pastor, you're a this, you're a that. And she herself came and told me this story. It was a friend, somebody I grew up with. She married a pastor, they were both pastors. She's been complaining about this man beating her. This afternoon, on the Friday or Saturday afternoon, they went into one again. The woman was pregnant. She took the two children, went to the family's home to say, look, I can't take this beating anymore. This man wants to kill me. And I'm too weak to fight him. I'm pregnant. The parent took the two children and sent her back to this man to say, tomorrow is Sunday. What will the family say? What will the church say? They don't see mommy pastor in church today. Reluctantly, she went. Before the morning break, the man stabbed her to death and killed her. And that was it. I want to beg you, please, if you are witnessing any kind of violence, it's not worth it. The same people that will judge you is the same people that will criticize you. God loves you more than till death do us part. You can have a wonderful life. Look at me, I'm glowing. I'm so big. In fact, I wish, my only regret is that I wish I did not stay for 22 years. The Lord bless you. The Lord prosper your work. I wish I left now. And the Lord be with you. Thank you so much for all the panelists. And thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pastor Sade. You will pay for that 1 minute extra. And I'm sure Tama will contact you.
No, actually, you owe me 2 minutes. I was meant to start at 12:50. You gave me 2 minutes.
Indeed, you are strong. God bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I love that. And this is just a normal experience of life, which is equally similar to the third speaker that I've just spoken to us. So I think it's something we need to take cognizance of, because life experience is something you cannot take away from people. Anish has given a life experience, and Pastor Sade has also given a life experience. These are coming from people that have been through it. The Lord has seen you through, we see others through. I will just recap briefly before we go into question and answer. And I'm sure all our mothers and our father are ready to look at those questions we've asked. And before we now go into the workshop per se, but just to recap on what Pastor Sade have already given to us. So it was like, what is the church leader doing to help? So she started from the origin, just like Anish, Anisha has said as well, Nigerian, and she said catalog wife. So I like that, and I will cap that and I use it somewhere else. She said the reason why she said that is that she's been through divorce. And the first time she was introduced as a fiancé. And Yoruba has an adage that said, so I think Pastor Sade has taken hold of this adage that it's a good to have a very good in-laws, but a bad child can still be managed. But eventually she find out that it is not so, that in-laws are good, to God be the glory. But if the main one is not good, then just do away with them. Don't die in silence. So she went further to start about living with the father. When she saw the father-in-law, she fell in love with the family and thought, yes, this is the family I want to belong in. But not until she comes inside and find out what exactly she has brought herself into. The first month coming to meet the husband in England, the welcome was a slap. And like Imam has already said, there is no touching, no physical fighting. So the first one, it was the first rule that was broken straight away, was slap. And because of the nature of Pastor Sade, a consistent, I won't say stubborn, a consistent person, a person with principle, she said, no, I won't want to break this marriage. I will keep hold of it. I'll make sure this marriage works. Like everybody always do. There are some things we thought we would need to make it work. And alas, we find ourselves in a position that it is only the grace of God that will see us through. So she has heard of this phrase, and I'm sure I will bring her back exactly on that phrase because she needs to explain it. Because she had God hate divorce. And you know the truth. That's what God says, and that's what his word says. But she keep finding excuses for 22 years. How long are we going to live in denial for? How long? If you are not honest with yourself, you can never be honest with others. And this is what has been going through for 22 years. God, it takes time for me to digest that lengthy of time. She has been through a lot, been through thinking of abortion. If he has gotten to that extent, that means the blood of person will be in my hand for the sake of, but we thank God that the child is alive today and bringing forth more. And I pray they will continue to increase. She has been through a lot. And when you see the husband, like Anisha said, you will never believe that she is an abusive person. You will never believe. You will think vice versa. But alas, the truth has come forth now. And when you are abused to an extent of you carrying a weapon, it's something that you cannot describe. It's an emotional thing. Someone has been scared and destroyed emotionally for them to have carried a weapon, because what that means is, well, whoever wants to die will die. Somebody has to die. And that is to that extent. So it must be a very grievous one. Then she sought counseling and started supporting the family, because she has been the breadwinner. And she thought, I need to keep my family. There are some things we cannot keep, and there are some things we can keep. But in a nutshell and in advice is, she will advise nobody should go through because of all these excuses. I want to keep my family. I want to make sure my children are consistent. Some excuses we normally use. I don't want to have child for another man. I don't want to marry another person. We have lots of excuses that held us bound. And this is what she has exposed to us. So the first person that lights the exit was our 15-year-old daughter that confronted her with the truth. Because sometimes if you don't know the truth, you will continue to live in deceit, thinking you are living in the truth. A 15-year-old knew what I'm saying is not right. Are you going to support me when I'm going through this? And the reality came, no, you will never go through. That means what I'm going through is not right. So she started planning on how to get out of it. And but all along continued to defend herself. And she confirmed from all other children. And they saw it from the same angle. That means sometimes we said love is blind. that love has blinded us from seeing the truth. But we thank God for the children that opens the Pastor Shade's eye to say, look, don't deceive yourself any further. We thank God. And so what message are we passing on to the generations to come? When you suffer in abuse, a lot of people keep silent. And that is why people don't speak about it up until tomorrow, because where they learn it from, nobody's speaking about it. And he went further to talk about, look at the source of the problem. So when things like this come, don't just grace it from the top of it. Let's look at the root. Anisha spoke about the culture of Indian. She has already spoken about the culture of Nigerian. So look at the root. Where is it coming from? So there must be something wrong somewhere. Otherwise, the foundation, once it's destroyed, what can the righteous do? So we should always note that do not pressurize your children in getting married. That's a good advice, because a lot of women they will be counting years for their children. And you are now 25, you are now 30, and you want to stay at home. She's advising, don't pressurize them. Let nature take its course. And it's advice again that we should always take a refresher courses. Yes, because what we thought is marriage might not be marriage. But until we get into it, a refresher course is required. And he said, acknowledging the problem, you need to face the truth and make sure you are talking the truth. And the last but not the least, in a nutshell, is do not keep quiet. Speak up. Because if you don't speak up, you might die in silence. When God said, I hate divorce, why must we do what the domestic abuse person did? And we did the same thing. Oh, I'll divorce you. That's the end of the solution. Can you expatiate, please, on that?
God hates a lot of things. Divorce is not the only thing in the Bible that God says he hates. God hates all kinds of sin. What God hates is for people to break their covenant. So if you make a promise to say you are going to love and care, and you're not doing that, God hates that you've done that. Now, the divorce, the time of the Bible, you have to understand, you cannot use double standard. The time of the Bible, God allowed men to give divorce to women, but not the other way around. And it was in that context that God says he hates that the men were living. And the same scripture is amazing that we pick that from, we just pick God hate divorce from there. In that Malachi, it talks about God not happy with the way the men were treating the women. And he even went on to say that because of the way they're treating the women, their prayers would not be answered. But we don't refer to any of that. All we saw is that we just take this God hate divorce out of context. But what God said, that the reason why God said it, in them days, women are not allowed to give a paper of divorce. It was the men. And God was complaining that he did not like the way they were treating the women. And as a punishment for them, God was not going to be answering their prayers. And God said he went the way they were leaving them, with no support, with nothing. In those days, they're totally completely dependent on it. But we're not in Bible days. And there's a lot of things that are different. So that's one thing. So God hates a lot of things. God hates sins. And when God talks about hating divorce in the Bible, he's not saying that it's an excuse for you to continue. He's actually fighting for women to say that, I do not like the way you are treating these women. And if you continue to treat them like that, I will not hear your prayers. So people take it in context and just use it loosely. But what God really is saying is, you are breaking your covenant. You make a covenant to look after this woman. You have now abandoned and left her without any support. That is why God says he hates the divorce. Because once you put the woman away in those days, the food, she doesn't eat, and she doesn't have children, she doesn't have any support, she become an outskirt, a discarded thing. And that was what God says he hates. God does not hate me for leaving someone that's already broken his covenant. If anything, God praise me and give me the strength and make sure that I have the courage to continue to live. So when God says, when any pastor tells to you, God says I hate divorce, you should ask him, go and read the Bible very well. What God was talking about is not you living an abusive relationship. It's for the way the men are treating the women in that time. And so it's and not only this is the word that God is. God is lying. God is stealing. God is you bearing false witness. God hates you mistreat. God hates all kinds of manner of sin. And you cannot have double standard. For instance, you can't come and say, I've had to involve in occasion where somebody married a man and found out the man is gay. And then you tell me, go ahead, divorce, and that woman stays in that marriage. How is that okay? Somebody married a man and that man molested a child, their own child, and you want to tell me remain in that marriage because God hates divorce? No, we are quoting the scripture out of context. Go back and study where God hates divorce comes from. It's not about you walking out of a violent home and saving yourself and your children. It's about how men treat women. And God do not like that because the way they abandon them with no care and no support. That's what God is talking about.
Thank you very much. Somebody have already given you accolade. Bible exposition. Well, I will throw you another question because you fought me on that. So we'll go on another one. How do we help our men? Because it's all about women now. Now, how do we help our men who are suffering in silence? The same people may laugh at them and call them coward. How do we help them?
You mean men who are victims of domestic violence?
Because a lot of men are going through domestic abuse as well and violence.
Well, in the same similar ways, we're saying to women to talk out, to speak up. We're also saying to men to speak up. It's not allowed. Violence of any kind is not acceptable in the marriage. We're married to enjoy each other, not to endure. If your marriage is getting to a point where you are enduring, then you need to sit yourself down and think about it. And I think for men, depending on the circumstances, men seem to have a little bit more power and control enough to work out of that relationship. Obviously, the first thing we want you to do is not to work out. We want you to seek help. Speak up. That's the first thing you must do. Whether you're a man or a woman, don't endure violence in your home in silence. Speak up. Thank God that we are now there's a lot of group now encouraging men to speak up as well. Speak up, get help for yourself, get help for the children, get help for your wife. and identify it. For some people, one of the things that is not very common in African society is that many of these people has undiagnosed mental illness. And we, instead of us to get them the proper treatment they need, we call it all kinds of stuff and we excuse it. And we put it in spiritual. You have to be praying. He needs deliverance. He needs this. If I hear he needs deliverance one more time, or she needs deliverance one more time, God help me. What that person may need, the person may be paranoid. He may be very, very mentally unstable and unwell. He may just need medication to sort his life out. He may just need counseling. It's not all the time that counseling is the solution. It's not all the time. Please, prayer answers most things. And sometimes what you need is just to take the person for a mental health assessment. They need to have an assessment because it's simple mental illness.
Yes.
And he will not want to, because of the stigma in our community, in our society, it's not something that he wants to come up and say, there's something wrong with me. I imagine things. You say something and I hear it differently. When I come in, I see you something, I see you look differently to me and something like that. And it's also until it gets out of hand. So for men and women, please don't suffer in silence. Speak up. There's no man should really worry about what people say. Everybody in this day and age, in this age of YouTube, when you get to all kinds of actors and characters on YouTube and Instagram and what, nobody should care about what people say about them. We are all actors and actresses now. So it doesn't matter. We all should be delivered from, I don't know who are the people, who are the they that we always refer to. The Lord will help us. I hope that answered your prayer, your question.
Thank you very much. In fact, 1000% answered.